popular politician on the left.
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's Bernie is
Bernie, yeah.
Bernie is, I mean, he's not a capitalist, you know?
No, he's not. And he's also not president.
He's not, but
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
No, but he will, trust me, he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people, they boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him. He does it to himself.
But they'll do it regardless. Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, but
they make anybody into boogeyman.
It has.
I think it was
just have more weight when it's real. I mean, when you can really show.
On the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mamdani, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to win?
Yeah.
Maher isn't letting up on Mani's socialist ideas. In a harsh run of clips from real time, he goes after Mamdani's proposals. Free groceries, buses, and schools, with full force. The critique hits hard, sharp, and unapologetically direct. So go ahead, hit subscribe, and let's dive into it.
New rule Democrats must recognize that Zohran Mamdani is the future of the party. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party. Get it? And if you missed his victory speech in last week's mayoral election in New York, don't worry. You'll see it in every attack ad for the next 2 years. Now, Mamdani seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get fucking torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again. Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical.
Here, Maher issues a blunt warning. If Democrats are reckless enough to ride the Mamdani surge into 2028 and make him their presidential nominee, they'd be sealing their own fate. It would be like handing the election straight to Republicans on a silver platter. And frankly, Maher has a point. That move would amount to a major, self-inflicted political disaster. Mamdani's bold, openly socialist message might energize the progressive wing and excite the far left, but its appeal doesn't stretch much further. Once you move beyond that circle and into the broader, competitive landscape of American politics, the message starts to fall apart. Center-right voters would drift away, and undecided voters, the ones who actually swing elections, would likely turn off completely. The result: another 4 years with Republicans in control of the White House.
The party has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center. Even the New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win.
Maher reads the data as a signal that many voters are drifting away from strongly progressive ideas and toward more moderate or center-right positions. He points to the 2024 election as proof. Voters didn't just choose Donald Trump, they split their tickets carefully, backing moderate Democrats where they saw them. In North Carolina, Trump won the state, yet Josh Stein crushed his Republican opponent in the governor's race by about 15 points. In Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin held on to her seat. And in Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin did the same, both in states Trump carried. The takeaway is hard to miss. Voters are willing to cross party lines for candidates they see as moderate, but far less likely to back someone they view as too far left. If Democrats lean further into that direction, Maher argues, they risk a major electoral backlash.
Problem is, Gen Z thinks socialism's wired and capitalism's tired and billionaires are what's for dinner. And who can blame them? If you're 30 and still sharing a bathroom with roommates, capitalism isn't working for you. People will reject any economic system where there's strange hair on the soap. No one wants to be approaching middle age and still writing their name on food before they put it in the fridge. So they're quiet quitting capitalism and texting socialism that they're down to fuck. Thing is, socialism will fuck you. Because socialism, to put it simply, just doesn't work and has never worked.
Maher frames it in stark terms, pointing to historical examples and arguing that systems like socialism have often struggled to live up to their promises in practice. He cites cases like the Soviet Union and Venezuela, where economic and social challenges became major issues, an argument he's made repeatedly on Real Time. From his perspective, many Americans have seen these outcomes and remain deeply skeptical of similar ideas taking hold in the United States. That's why, he argues, a candidate closely associated with those policies could become a serious political liability. The concern is that moderates, independents, and even some Democrats might strongly reject that direction, potentially turning away without hesitation and reshaping the outcome at the ballot box.
And the Democrats, I read these, 74% are for democratic socialism. Only 16% favor capitalism. Is this going to be a country that I don't recognize in 5 to 10 years if we don't have these two pillars? If we don't, where are the Democrats going with this? If Mamdani is the face of the Democrats on the East Coast and Katie Porter is the face on the West Coast, I don't know if that's great politically for them.
The Democratic Party's shift toward more left-leaning policies isn't just notable, it's striking. The numbers Maher cites suggest a party moving in a direction that could carry real political risks if it continues unchecked. Here's a perspective that might catch some off guard. Some would still prefer figures like Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, or Gavin Newsom over others such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders. The reasoning behind that view is that, despite their differences and criticisms, the first group is generally seen as working within the existing economic framework, while the latter are more closely associated with pushing for deeper structural changes. Supporters of this argument often emphasize that capitalism, while imperfect, has historically driven economic growth and innovation, and they see preserving that foundation as essential. Others, of course, strongly disagree and argue that reforming the system is necessary to address inequality and other challenges.
Is New York. It's definitely it's the media capital, the financial capital. It is a bellwether like no other city is in this country. So don't tell me that who the mayor of New York is doesn't matter.
Let me
more
play
than
devil's advocate for a second. Do you think, let's say, on the seize the means of production, do you think that the mayor, that one person, if he is a democratic socialist, do you think that he would have the power and influence to be able to, usher in socialism?
That's a fair question to tackle directly. Could a president really steer the US towards something like socialism? In practice, it's not that simple. The American system is designed to prevent any one leader from making sweeping changes alone. Congress controls legislation and funding, courts can strike policies down, and even members of the same party often disagree. Any major shift in economic policy would require broad political support and sustained public backing over time. What Maher is pointing to is a different kind of concern, gradual change. A president can influence direction through policy priorities, executive actions, and appointments, nudging things step by step rather than making an overnight transformation. That's true of any administration, regardless of ideology. At the same time, claims about overwhelming, unified support within a party tend to be overstated. Political parties are coalitions with a wide range of views, and getting agreement on major proposals is rarely easy, so the more grounded takeaway is this. While a president can shape the direction of policy, any large-scale transformation would still depend on Congress, the courts, and, ultimately, voters.
Only has the power and influence to elect J.D. Vance or whoever is the Republican candidate next time. It is a walking commercial for the Republican Party
I think
nationally.
the Republicans are going to...
When you let the Democrats, socialists, and now they're actually calling themselves socialists, when you let them take over a major American city, this is what you get. the state-run grocery stores, which worked so well in Cuba and the Soviet Union and Venezuela. Just bad ideas. And again, this ugly streak.
Well, you look
streak of anti-Semitism.
Maher's core argument here is less about ideology in the abstract and more about electoral consequences. He's basically warning that if the Democratic Party shifts too far toward openly socialist branding, it gives Republicans an easy, ready-made narrative to campaign against. Simple, emotional, and repeatable. That idea isn't unique to him. Even within Democratic circles, there's an ongoing debate about how far left the party can move before it starts losing persuadable voters in the middle. Maher has made similar points before, arguing that Democrats risk overplaying progressive messaging and handing opponents a clear contrast to run on. The flip side, though, is that politics rarely works as cleanly as one message wins or loses everything. Elections are usually decided by a mix of issues: economy, incumbency, candidate quality, and voter turnout, not just one ideological label. And even when Republicans use sharp messaging against Democrats, voters don't always respond uniformly. Ticket splitting and local races often tell a more complicated story, so the more grounded way to put it is this: a hard shift in rhetoric can become a political liability in some contexts, especially in swing areas, but it doesn't automatically translate into the kind of sweeping, inevitable collapse being described.
Most popular politician on the left.
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's Bernie is Bernie is, I mean, he's not a capitalist,
No, he's not, and he's also not president.
But
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
No, but he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people. They boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him. He does it to himself.
But they'll do it regardless. Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, but
they make anybody as a boogeyman. I think it was
just have more weight when it's real. I mean, when you can really.
This is the sharpest point Maher is trying to make. And from his perspective, it's a compelling one. The Republican messaging machine, as he sees it, will aggressively frame and attack almost any major Democratic figure who emerges. That's not new. It's part of modern U.S. politics. He points to examples like Barack Obama, who is often portrayed by opponents as a radical outsider, Hillary Clinton, who became a symbol of political distrust for many conservatives, and Nancy Pelosi, who is frequently used as a focal point for criticism from the right. Maher's argument is that, in many of those cases, the political attacks went beyond fair criticism and leaned heavily into exaggeration or distortion. But where he draws a sharper distinction is with Zohran Mamdani. In his view, Mamdani is more exposed politically because his policy positions are already clearly stated and openly aligned with democratic socialist ideas. That, Maher suggests, changes the dynamic. Opponents wouldn't need to invent a narrative or stretch the truth as far. Instead, they could point directly to his own stated positions and use them as the basis for criticism. In that sense, the political vulnerability isn't about fabrication. It's about how easily those positions can be framed in a broader national campaign context.
It'd be horrible for a guy like you, who you spent your whole life talking about how government tries to do too much, which it does, and spends too much. And here you have Trump, who is the Republican, who is aggrandizing more power than anybody, as we just talked about. And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mamdani, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to win?
Yeah. I think every 20 years or so.
Wait.
We need every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again.
Now, while George will present a fairly reasonable intellectual case, there comes a point where endless experimentation has to end. We already have more than enough real-world evidence, decades upon decades of it, to reach a fairly firm conclusion about socialism. At this stage, it is no longer just an abstract theory or a classroom debate. History has effectively run the test, and the outcomes are hard to ignore. The Soviet Union ultimately collapsed under the strain of its own economic and political system. Venezuela, once one of the wealthiest countries in its region, has experienced severe economic decline and instability. Cuba, meanwhile, has faced long-term economic hardship and dependence on external support. These examples are frequently cited as evidence of a consistent pattern, that socialist systems, when implemented at scale in practice, have often struggled to deliver on their promises. The broader point being made is that socialism, despite its theoretical appeal to equality and fairness, has repeatedly faced serious challenges in real-world implementation. While supporters argue that external factors and policy variations matter, critics see a pattern of economic inefficiency and political rigidity across many historical cases.
Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess. So, when the post-war Labour government in Britain was about to get started, one of their leading lights was a socialist named Nurian Bevan. He said, what could go wrong? He said, we have a nation bedded on coal, surrounded by fish. It would take an organizational genius to have a shortage of either. In 3 years, they had a shortage of both.
That, ultimately, is the core of the argument. Bill Maher, despite being a lifelong liberal, has been raising concerns in a fairly direct way, and some believe the Democratic Party would be taking a political risk if it ignores voices like his. From this perspective, polling data, historical case studies, and voter sentiment all seem to reflect a common worry. That policies viewed as socialist or strongly left-leaning remain a tough sell for a large portion of American voters, regardless of how strongly progressives support them. Supporters of this view argue that if the Democratic Party wants to regain and maintain broad electoral success, it may need to shift closer to the political center and focus on proposals that appeal to a wider range of voters. Otherwise, they warn, the outcome in future elections like 2028 could be far more damaging than a simple loss. And with that, we wrap up today's video. If you found this discussion interesting, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.